We'll start with, a little bit about me and how I kind of got wrapped into starting businesses. What I wanted to do is figure out something that represented the Northwest. Got networked into someone who was starting a distillery. We really wanted to represent something from the Pacific Northwest. It's very obvious, botanicals around my head. Uh, Oregon guys really wanted to bring Northwest to the country was our main goal there. I think the important pieces of how we started Wyld Roots is we were a client of a co-packer. We started with $50,000 seed. We didn't have any infrastructure, no facilities, no teams, no members, no contracts, no pledged orders. We made one pallet of vodka. I hopped in a car and started selling it. And basically from there, that company has grown into a brand house now called Cascade Spirits. It's got traction in Oregon. 2.5, 3 years later from scaling that, we basically got our own facility. Cannabis went recreational in Oregon. So I looked at my business partner right in the eye and said, sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to run your own business basically, because he was doing another thing at the time as well. And I'm gonna go branch out into some sort of cannabis. You wanna come, we have to do it. I think a lot of people think that, we had this predestined brand in our head. Honestly, we went backwards, got 150,000 from seed money and went to a broken down farm building in Central Oregon and kind of started all over again. We didn't even know we were going to do edibles. We didn't know we were going to do fruit infused gummies. I know nothing about food. That's the biggest joke of them all. If you know anything about me, I know nothing about food. I know a lot about commercialization of food at this point. But yeah, so we basically spent a couple of months just fucking things up. We couldn't get gummies to sit for a week. They were moldy and everything we tried was failing. And there's two of us on a broken down farm with one residential burner, just trying to make it work. I sleep in the garage, cooking in the morning. That's kind of the origin stories of Wyld. Wyld launched in the medical days of Oregon. It was about 12 months we had on market before the recreational system came to life. Uh, During that time, it was kind of a soft launch. We knew we were a recreational brand. I really wanted to just focus on regional doors. I think that's another thing that's misconceived about Wyld is people think we came out of the gate and just took over everything, right? Me and one partner were basically just grinding Portland, Oregon for a year in sales and really focusing on velocity per door versus quantity of doors. And we really just wanted to build a localized, like regionalized reputation, obviously in the biggest city in Oregon, even though we're producing in Central Oregon. And that was kind of our approach. Basically, we leveraged all of our profits. We saved money. I didn't hire any services. We didn't have bookkeepers. We were very lean. There's only 3 to 6 employees. And we put every single penny we had into a recreational build out. It was a 1,600 square foot kitchen in Clackamas, Oregon. We were coming into the recreational market, $400,000 in debt. We had $13 in the bank account. I called another 2 guys. I was like, guys, you guys want to do it again? We finally got our license back. We got out of the lawsuits and we went for it. The rest is kind of history there. Honestly, we hit the market with the same regionalized approach, and we'll get into sales tactics later and sales strategies. But same regionalized approach, we relaunched Portland, Oregon, and from there, it just kind of took off. Right, within 90 days, we were the #1 selling edible in Oregon, and kind of the story as most people know it starts there. It's about 3.5 years ago in the recreational market. So Wyld from there goes from its transition from Oregon's #1 edible brand into a national, MSO, which is multi-state operator. Wyld hasn't taken on any investments during this time, no loans, anything along these lines. We've been doing all of this with organically generated capital. So basically, 2018, we wanted to find out a way how to enter new states. There's this myth in cannabis that you have to do everything with money. You have to enter market, you have to buy California, you have to do all these things. We managed to do, these reverse licensing agreements, but we launched in Nevada. The goal was to launch Nevada, California, Colorado, and a Wyld CBD brand all in the same 6 months. We ended up getting 3 of those 4 out. The Colorado launch ended up taking 12 months later. Long story short, the truth is we went to Nevada with 3 people, $250,000, 1 van and a trailer park. We built a kitchen and trailer park there. California, we retrofitted someone else's kitchen that had a license. We sent down, it was 6 employees, 3 vans, and kind of there again, there's the same approach. So people think, you can't enter cannabis without a ton of money. We entered California for a couple $100,000. That includes inventory, labor, vans, everything. Yeah, you don't need as much money as you think. You really don't. I think the lawyers will come out, the bookkeepers will come, the marketing companies will come out, the distribution companies will come out. They'll all tell you what you need. You don't need it. We established our business for $50 on LegalZoom. We spent $2,500 on all brand development. That includes logo, brand creation, naming, botanical assets. Everyone thinks we have $1 million box. We made it possible or not. Did we have to talk to 39 marketing companies? Yes. Did I have to Google on Reddit for too many sleepless nights and just really didn't go anywhere? It's kind of a waste of time, but at least, I was looking. Yes. And then it's that entry to market. I do not overbuild. Find a license who will let you share a kitchen. There's shared kitchens. There's co-packers, but those require some capital because you need to put the capital into the business up front. That's how we started the spirits business. But start really small and find a shared kitchen. And the best part about the cannabis industry is there's a lot of facilities that have been built out that aren't being utilized. And I see more and more businesses taking advantage of this. And to be honest, we'll talk about how Wyld expands. Wyld expands this way. So when Wyld is looking for out-of-state expansion, we don't necessarily build our own facilities. We look for facilities that are being underutilized. And then we just offer to come in and be like, hey, we have credibility now, but back when we didn't, I had to convince people, it's like, hey, you're not running this kitchen 3 days a week. Give me these 6 hours, right? Give my team these 3 days. We'll share our expenses. Let's figure that out. And let us basically just help pay your bills, because most cannabis industries are lacking capital, they're lacking profitability. I wouldn't say capital. And so they're really just trying to fill out their thing. So really start small. Find a way to get in without overbuilding. And then if your concept does prove, don't take on the first investor. Wyld still hasn't taken on institutional money. We don't have a board of directors. Everything we've done has been through generally rated capital. And it's really just like slowly build it. It doesn't, in this gold rush, this era of the green rush, everyone's looking for their billion-dollar exit. You read it all the time. We see it all the time. Do not rush it. I think what you're going to find, and I will stand by this forever, and it's already beginning, the people that have been playing the slow, long game are now beginning, you're talking to me now at this point, are now beginning to get recognized, right? We have stayed disciplined. We have stayed very true to going very small incremental growth. Our growth has been explosive, but we've never overextended ourselves. How to start a cannabis company, right? I think there's two real philosophies in there, right? And I think neither of them are incorrect. I think there's a capital heavy approach, which requires access to capital and requires all sorts of things that honestly, really just the East Coast bankers seem to have on lock, right? It's very difficult for the West Coast outside of California to have access to capital. But yeah, so there's a capital approach, which really is, raise $1 million, build a facility, and kind of just follow that. And it works for many. But the way I wanted to go with it, we didn't have that access to capital. We had some, obviously, is light assets, right? And I think the big key to it in cannabis is not perfect planning. So I think a lot of people in cannabis, call it discipline, call it whatever you want, but you get into it. We got it. We didn't even know what the brand was going to be. We didn't know we were going to do edibles. We just knew we wanted to get into cannabis. It's a sequence of making decisions versus planning, right? So get that and make the decision. Then we go into edibles, because the reason we did edibles is because it's a brand, it's a product versus a commodity. Literally, I don't have the patience to watch something grow, but I didn't want to get involved in commodity trading, as the flower prices and then the oil, which is just derivative of flower, has basically gone through. We wanted to go with the category that we could build a brand presence, and that was edibles. But yeah, the light asset approach is, there's a lot of ways. There's co-packers, there's shared kitchens. We were in the medical days. So we basically took down a broken down farm building that couldn't be licensed today. In no way. It was legal at the time. And we basically just used a residential burner. And our first batch was basically just making 1,000 gummies within the first 6 months. And then we loaded into my 96 Subaru and we started selling it. And really the key there is, when you go light assets approach, you don't need a bookkeeper. You don't need many lawyers. You don't need employees. You don't need anything. And there's a level of hustle that it requires, I think, when you're starting any business. But with cannabis in particular, most things don't work. And so how do you pay someone to be an expert on a subject in an industry that doesn't exist? So what are you really hiring for until you know it yourself? And I think that has been the only way to do it with the light asset approach. But I really think the way you can do it, ignore the headlines, ignore the fancy kitchens. There's a kitchen right next to us that has 13 brands housed in it. They pay, a per hourly fee. And some of these brands have got off the ground for less than $10,000. I'm not saying, we'll see how successful they are, but that's a moot point. Dumb yourself down. The biggest advice I try to give to anyone touching the cannabis, whether you're looking to get involved, auxiliary services, employed, or starting your own business, dumb yourself down. This industry doesn't exist. It is an unregulated market coming into the regulated market. There are no experts. There's a lack of professionalism. It's really not that. It's a lack of standardization. So there's no processes. Retailers don't know how to onboard things. They don't come from. Kroger hasn't been involved. No real experience is into it. And so you really have to, I say all the time, dumb yourself down to the point where what you think will work probably won't. And so it goes back to the repetitive thing I'll always drill into everyone's head. Make a sequence of decisions. Do not plan and focus on pivoting versus planning, right? Just go for it and do it yourself. And the other thing, it's on later, but really, if you're going to start a cannabis company, mandatory, if you ask me, is to have you or one of your founders must be sales oriented. I don't care if you know how to design brands. I don't care if you just know how to do all the services. I don't care if you're the best operator in the world. In cannabis, there are no real distribution services. There are no real brokers for all that same infancy reasons. Someone needs to be able to sell this product, and it needs to be one of the founding members. If you can't open up your first 50 doors, you can't start a cannabis business. No one will open your first 50 doors. No one will. No matter what they tell you, no matter what they're pledged, no matter what you pay them, it will not happen. I don't actually go for like the biggest hitters. I think you should just focus on every door. I think it's what your brand philosophy really is. For us, it was the first 50 doors that said yes. There was no target market. We hit up the biggest stores. We hit up the smallest stores. We were just on a mission to get people to say yes, because our biggest goal was to really see if the brand would work, right? We really wanted to see get into the hands. You can raise money. You can make 7 SKUs. You can have the prettiest pitch deck. You really want to see if a bud tender can push your product. You really just want to see that. And so we just, the first 50 that said yes, no MOQs, don't make it fancy and show up yourself, right? If you show up yourself and you're like, this is my product, this is what we've been doing, this is what we're trying to do, the authenticity will win, right? I think it's a new industry. I think it's a very youthful industry, right? I think there's a generational gap largely in this industry. And I think the industry wants it to be different. We want it to be different. And there's like a sense of personalization and ownership that stores will really resonate with. And so, yeah, it's the first 50 doors. If they see someone's like bring them a new product, and stores tell us all the time, some new person brings another product, they don't really care. Like, who are you? Who made it? Who's behind the product? It's kind of that infancy. Like, people really want to have a connection with what they store. There's no one brand that dominates every store. There's no Coca-Cola, Bud Lights. There's not these mandatory products that you must carry. And so like stores, you might be number one in the state, and a store is like, cool, I don't have a connection with your story. I don't care. And that's the reality of cannabis. And we don't have the most epic story besides ours is like grind. Ours is we did it ourselves, bootstrapped it. Like, we are the owners. Our sales founder has opened up over 1,100 stores by himself. And so by far, he's opened up more dispensaries in the nation than anyone else. And guess what he's still doing? All he does for us is travel to new markets and open up doors. And so like most stores' first interaction is with the largest edible company in the country is with one of the founders of Wyld. I'm not saying you have to go that model, but is a very impactful connection to bridge between your dispensaries early on. The sales strategy starts small, whether it's 10 doors, 50 doors, starting to regionalize. Don't take those 50 doors and I got 3 in Oregon, but I got 3 in this city, 4 hours north, I got 7 in this city. Choose an area and really go after those stores, and do not leave that area until you can adequately service every single one of those accounts. And what I mean by service is not just show up and give them reorders, but make sure they see 2 or 3 reorders. So if someone picks up your product, that's great, but until they order it probably 3 or 4 times, it doesn't mean anything. And so just focus on treating those accounts properly and proving that concept within those doors before you open up another region. Never stock out a product, ever, never do it. I think in this industry in particular, I see it all the time. One of the most common mistakes I see is out of stock issues. They say it's commodity, they say it's supply chain, prepare for it. Never stock out, hold back some inventory and your sales to stock out instead of opening up those doors. To get velocity in a store, I think a lot of people think it's an order, drop off your product, come in, check how it's going, run a promotion, right? In the infancy and the dumb yourself down theme, it really comes down to doing their jobs for them. When we opened up a store, for example, and we're focused on the velocity of our first stores, we're going to be there in every 48 hours because we want to know if a SKU stocks out, right? And it'll happen all the time. If you don't do this, so an example, if you show up on Monday, call them next Monday, like, yeah, we sold 37 units. And then, but they don't really know that they stocked out a 1 on Tuesday, they stocked out a 3 on Thursday. And so you kind of have to go in there and be like, hey, this one's selling because they ordered 10 of all of them. You know which one's your popular product. This one sold out on Tuesday. I'm going to be on you in a polite way, obviously, until you restock it. And you kind of have to prove the concept for them because they're overwhelmed. The other thing about cannabis is I don't want to call it a lack of professionalism. It is everyone's underpaid, everyone's overworked, and no one has any experience. And so they need help. Frankly, you see a lot of experienced people and people that we've hired and, other companies, they come from traditional sales and CPG and selling to grocery stores, and it's a partnership. There's more expectations on what the retailer will do, and there's more expectations on what the vendor will do. In cannabis, the expectation is the vendor to do everything because the retailer is swamped doing XYZ. There's too many vendors. So really, so instead of opening up 70 doors that you can see once a week, open up 20 doors that you can go in there 3 times a week at the beginning. Don't go and bug them, but just keep a track on your inventory for them. And, that's how, 1, you then prove how you prove how you've helped their business. 2, you're gaining credibility because you're showing the velocity of your own product. And 3, you're just establishing a connection with someone and you've only helped them. One of the deposits you can make is making sure your products are in stock so they can make more money, right? And then you ask for your withdrawals later. But it's too many people, hey, I gave you a discount, now I want something in return. It's more give than it is take when you're selling cannabis products to dispensaries. And, I come from the spirits industry, and then we're in the health and wellness and a couple other industries, and they're not like that. Like, we cannot take this sales approach to our other businesses at all. It doesn't work. And so it's kind of a really unique philosophy, or it's a really unique industry. And I think people they open up too many doors and they don't give each door proper attention. Don't spend money on digital media, influencers, billboards. Spend money on pop-ups, events, anything your customer can touch, feel, and most importantly, if you can ever get in front of your customer. If you can have one of your members in front of a customer, it might feel like you go to a store for 3 hours and you saw 9 people. When you're starting a business, that feels an incredible waste of time and you have a million things to do. But that might be the best 3 hours you spent that day, even though you only saw 9 customers. Quality touches over quantity touches. You don't need $1 million. You don't need $3 million. I've never written a business plan in my life. I triple majored in liberal arts degrees. No one's ever told me how to run a business, and that is what makes me the most dangerous. Just make a decision and go for it. It's actually not that hard. It seems impossible, and it's not that complicated. Let's go with that. It's not as complicated as people believe it to be. There's compliancy, there's X, Y, Z. And I think everyone is seeing the models of cannabis companies, and they see vertical, they see own your footprint. I read the headlines. I'm in the industry, right? We all read the same thing. And, don't follow those business models. Don't listen to me, right? People are always, what was Wyld's juice? What was Wyld's success? And I say it was the people behind Wyld. right? It's literally the people behind Wyld and his passion. And it's like a cliche. And, I'll give you advice on CX and customer experience. I can give you advice here, but if you don't like what I'm saying, fuck it. Who cares? Don't listen to it. Go do your own thing. If you think you have the next great idea and your way on entry to market is the way to do it, like just do it. Finding a foundation team, right? Or founding team. Uh, Wyld has three managing members, three basic founders. Really, the Wyld team was built on, three people, right? It was built on a strong operator, analytical mindset, strategy, brand identity, me. We had a yin to the yang, which is our, administrator network, my business partner named Chris Joseph. He is more like brand creation, more of that marketing, that polish side, less head down, bust through walls. And then ultimately, my biggest advice for you is the sales. We hired a sales guy. Well, it was a sales guy that I was like, I can't pay you commission, but I give you equity in over investment schedule. And, it's risky, but, you're not going to be able to afford a salesperson. We were paying him $2,000 a month, no commission, no expenses paid for. And the only thing I had to offer him was equity in a company that hadn't proven itself. But it was the best investment I ever made. We hire personalities. I don't give a shit about your resume. If you look at our team and you look at our executive team, they don't come from big companies. They don't come from other industries. They have no experience. I hire a personality and I look for, I think personalities often get confused as will they fit in the culture. I don't necessarily need everyone to be identical here. I just want a personality and a desire. And like basically what I look for is self-awareness. I look for self-awareness, ambition, and then I guess I can say this, but I look for someone on the progressive side of things. And really, if they have those three things, then we can teach them everything. And so our worst hires often are people with more experience. I call them resumes, and we have a deconstruction program. Basically, the more experience you have, the longer it takes me to deconstruct you down to simple things. Most things in business are like things in life. You just have to make a decision and you have to live with it. They're gray. Perfect planning will kill you. And the more experience and the more opinions you get in a room means the longer the plan will take to be created and the execution will not follow. So really, I just look for, young, hungry personalities. And that's really what we did. I took a sales guy, for example, from wildland firefighting. His professional experience was fighting fires in the forests. And that's all he's ever done. And now, he's well renowned as the best sales guy in cannabis, and that was 4 years ago. Self-awareness is key. If you can't be self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses and what you're going to need to really complete something, then you shouldn't also be able to do it. So for me, on top of I'm a strong operator. I'd give myself a B salesperson. I've done it. I will do it. Still do it. I still love it. But I'm not the best at it, right? But I'm really good at operating and sales strategy and those things. So it was just a self-awareness exercise. And if you can shelf your ego, you can build a team. You don't need management experience. You don't need a consultant. Oh, you definitely don't need one of those. You really just need to go through a self-awareness reflection and understand what you're really good at. Everyone wants to create a brand. Everyone wants to be in marketing. Everyone wants to be on the brand design thing. Doesn't mean you're good at it. I'm not good at it. I'm good at sales execution, or I'm good at brand strategy and what the market wants more than I am at brand creation, if that makes sense. So yeah, you have to look, if you're the best at cleaning the toilets, you should be cleaning the toilets and letting someone else run the kitchen. Just because you're the founder doesn't mean you should run the kitchen and they should clean the toilets, right? It's a self-awareness exercise. And I think it's something, well, in this industry, it's lacking, right? And so I think we're going to see a new wave of people getting into this industry that are going to weed out some of the older way of doing businesses, which is just a hierarchy of who's been here the longest, but I report to you, so you do this task, right? So a founder, what am I supposed to do as a founder, right? Founder, I don't know, network, buy cars. I don't even know what founders are supposed to do, CEOs. I have no idea. What I do is I like to be in the trenches. I like to go to the States, and this is just what works for me, right? I know that when we launch a state, I should go live there for 3 months, right? I know I should go do those things. There is no data. There is no consumer insights. There's no experienced retail buyer. There's no mature brands. There's no mature anything. We don't even have regulation that makes sense. With the cannabis, you have to go see it yourself, right? I mean, you should go talk to bud tenders, you should go talk to stores. That being said, all the bud tenders told us, well, here's the advice I got from bud tenders. Don't do it. You can't compete. Gummies shouldn't exist. We have too many. Your price will be too high. No one cares about that niche. Okay. I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway because I think they're all wrong. And now that's probably what they tell the next gummy company. And I'm like, guys, just because someone else is making gummies doesn't mean you shouldn't make gummies. Our first business was to get in the vodka business. It's the most saturated beverage in the world in terms of non-alcoholic beverages. We just jumped right in, right? So if you really think that you can do it, you should go for it. But I always just say you have to know the taste and the sound and the direction of the wind. You have to go feel it. You have to go to the conventions. It's not who you talk to. It's not which advice you get. It's not who you connect yourself with. What's going on? Go get your gut read. Go walk around and be like, man, there's 37 people making peanut butter, but I've never seen any of my friends eat cannabis peanut butter. And it's like, yeah, it's because no one wants cannabis peanut butter. And so you just have to go make kind of those gut analysis. There is no resources. I think that's the biggest thing. Maybe that's the biggest thing. What resources can I study when there aren't any? And so you just have to go into dispensaries, conventions, talk to everyone you can, take all that advice for what it is, and then make your gut read on it. Oh yeah, me personally, if you want what worked for me, I love being told what I can't do. I have spent 31 years of my life being told what I can't do and crushing it. So I get off on when people want to tell me what I shouldn't do, because I'm just like, I'm going to fucking do that. And I'm going to come right at you when I do it, bring it. And that's what gets my juices going. And that's where it's like, don't overthink it, right? Don't make the business plan. Don't take some of this advice literally, but you should probably make a business plan. It's probably a good recommendation. You just have to jump in, right? It's like, put your boxing gloves on and go to match. You're going to lose the first 5 rounds. You are going to get your ass knocked out every single time. And then all of a sudden you're not. And then all of a sudden you're going to be knocking everyone else out. And you're like, what the hell happened? But if you don't get in the ring, you're never going to win a match. If someone tells you something is saturated in cannabis, they're lying. I come from gummies. Gummies is the largest category in the edible category. It's probably one of the largest market shares in the whole country for any specific product type. It is the least saturated category in the country, and every other gummy company in the lower 48, I've seen them publicly do it. They're like, make anything but a gummy. The dispensaries don't need another gummy. I'm like, guys, people buy a lot of gummies. You should make a lot of gummies. If people say the vape game is over, it's too saturated, you can't compete, they're lying. Make a vape. I know very few vape brands that are legitimate. I know very few edible brands, gummy brands that are legitimate. I know very few flower brands that are legitimate. They can hate me for it. That's cool. They already do. I mean, they already hate me. So just jump in and don't try to find a niche, right? And so I think a good point too, a lot of people when they ask me like, hey, I want to get into cannabis edibles, I'm like, you should do it. Obviously, it's the ranch, but they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, here's what I say to everyone. Everyone's looking for the new product. There's a lot of misconception. This is going to go against counter to basically probably every other cannabis edible founder that you talk to, right? There's a lot of misconception that you want to bring everyday food. You want to bring cannabis to everyday food. You want to find a product that's not to market. You want to invent a product category. People are tired of gummies. That's all's on the market. The reality is the opposite, right? How do you make a niche product? Let's go back to peanut butter. How do I make a niche product in an industry that doesn't even have standardized products? So I'm trying to create a niche in a realm that everything's a niche. And so if you go too specific in something, it's almost like too much of a hyper focus. And you're like, no, but cannabis needs an active lifestyle, granola bar, peanut butter, it's healthy. And I'm like, there's 2 things to that. One, you have to sell per state. It's really expensive per state to launch. You can't sell wide in federal distribution networks. And 2, have you ever seen anyone buy it, right? And so get into one of the traditional markets. There's so much market share to carve out. Don't be afraid to jump in. And just because some company who has $100 million is doing it, honestly, it gives you an advantage, right? That means that company's unwilling to change. We ended up gummies in a backwards way. So this is what Wyld wanted to be. Now I'll go tell you that I was the peanut butter guy. Wyld wanted to be an adventure, Patagonia, North Face. I'm a huge mountain guy. I'd rather sleep in a mountain than a city. Rather be in my tent than a house, right? I wanted granola bars, peanut butter, drink mixes. I wanted everything about Cliff Bars. I wanted all that, right? I wanted to be rock climbers. I wanted to be all that adventure sports shit. Then I was like, no one's doing it. And that's originally why I wanted to do it. And then I went in, went around and I was like, literally no one's doing it. And at the time there was two companies that were trying to do it in Oregon. And I literally think they were selling like one granola bar a month. Right. So I literally went into gummies kind of in the same spiel that I said. I ended with gummies. I was like, wow, what does the market buy? The market buys gummies. So we're going to start there. Differentiation was how we're going to differentiate. Obviously, we went the real fruit approach. We're fruit people. Obviously, botanicals all around my head. But yeah, we went with real fruit. And then the other differentiation, which, I think a lot of people in cannabis want to talk about product differentiation, brand differentiation, and like, why does Wyld sell this volume? I think it was because we also, a big differentiation was the services we provided. And those services were we self-manufactured, we self-distributed, and what came with that was a guarantee of customer service, a guarantee that we would be there, a guarantee that would make wrongs rights, right? And I think that was, people don't really take that advice. Actually, that's like one of the things that I get the most eye rolls on. People are like, no, but I really wanted to know, like it was the origami box, right? It was that, right? I'm like, cool. And you can see a lot of our competitors choosing one of the 6 things that they think was Wyld. And I think the differentiation is obviously real fruit, consistency of product. Like we take it very seriously about homogeneity. We use farmer grade mixers, and there's a lot of things that, people are still cooking edibles. We manufacture them. There's a very big difference. And I took that very seriously from day one because that's how my brain works. Like I said, I don't know how to cook, but I know how to manufacture. So we took a manufacturing approach to gummies. So I think that was a big one, but really it was the promise of Wyld. The promise of Wyld was the people behind Wyld and that we were the ones out there doing it ourselves. And that's kind of what took off like wildfire, outside of the origami box, the real fruit, and some of those other things. As my brother always says, just let the games begin. Just jump in the pool. That's really what it's going to take. I understand it's harder because, like, it's not that simple, but it can be.